Tate opened his mouth, then closed it. She pressed gently, relentlessly. Why does it feel like a threat when someone else touches him? Because people take things, I said through my teeth. They ruin them. Tate, she said very softly, people don't ruin friends by loving them. I shook my head, disgust rising again. I'm not gay. She didn't argue that either, she just said, okay, but being in love doesn't always start with labels. Sometimes it starts with your whole nervous system wrapped around one person and nowhere else. I turned away from her. You're wrong. She let the silence stretch, then said the thing that still echoes now. If Noah fell in love with someone else, she asked, would you be happy for him or would it break you? I didn't answer. I couldn't, because my chest was already tight, already aching, already reacting to a future I refused to imagine. I felt anger. Noah could have all the friends he wanted, he could even date girls if he chose, but under no circumstances was my bed, or better yet our bed, to be cold. If I had to sleep alone, we would have a problem. Noah could be with anyone he wanted as long as at the end of the night he slept next to me. That was the one thing I couldn't seem to compromise on. If he chose to sleep somewhere else, then I would have to go find him. I didn't care where he went or who he spent his time with. I just needed to know that when the day was over, Noah was coming back to our bed. Susie nodded like that was enough of an answer. I'm not trying to force anything, she said gently. I just don't want you to wake up one day and realize you called love something smaller because the real word scared you. I hated her for that. I hated how calm she was. I hated how my body felt like it had been exposed. So I did what I always did. I shut it down. I labeled her concern as misunderstanding, her insight as intrusion. I wrapped my devotion back up in safer words, friendship, protection, loyalty, and walked away convinced I'd won the argument. But now I see it. I wasn't debating her because she was wrong. I was protesting because she was getting too close to something I had trained myself never, ever to touch. Susie told me about it later, years later, her voice careful like she was handling something fragile. She and her girlfriends, Anna and Bree, had stopped by our Rambler one afternoon. They thought they'd say hi to Noah, maybe wait for me. Instead, they found us asleep. Noah's twin bed, curtains half drawn, late afternoon light cutting across the room, and there we were spooned together like it was the most natural thing in the world. My body draped over his, arms curved around him, my nose tucked snugly into the soft place beneath his ear, breathing him in. His body relaxed completely into mine as he trusted it to hold. They didn't wake us, they just stood there quiet. Anna was the first one to whisper, "Are they married?" Bree shook her head slowly, "No rings." They watched a moment longer, my chest rising and falling in time with his, our bodies fitted together with the ease of habit. Then Bree asked the question that apparently stopped all of them cold. "Okay," she said softly, "so are they in love?" Susie said no. No one laughed, no one made a joke, no one said "Ew" or "That's weird." They weren't shocked. They were confused. "They don't sleep like buddies," Anna said. "They sleep like a couple who's been together forever," Bree added, "like they don't even think about it." Susie told me she tried to explain, tried to use the words I always used. "They grew up together. They're really close. There's sentiment. It's complicated." Anna just looked at her and said, "You can call it whatever you want, but that's intimacy." Bree nodded, "That's not casual, that's not temporary, that's chosen." Susie told me she felt this ache in her chest watching us, me curled on top of Noah like my body had memorized the shape of his safety. She said it didn't look unhealthy, it didn't look desperate, it looked devoted. "And that's when I knew," Susie admitted quietly, "not suspected, knew you were already living like his partner, you just didn't have the words or the permission to know it." When she told me this, my first instinct was to recoil, shame, heat, that old disgust rising like a reflex, but underneath it now finally was something else. Grief. Because while they were standing there asking if we were married or in love, I was asleep, peaceful, certain, wrapped around the person my body had chosen again and again without ever asking my mind for approval. I didn't know it then, but my body did, and it had been known for a very long time. Susie told me there was more, much more, that the conversation didn't end with that first question. Anna kept staring at us, her voice barely above a whisper. "Wait," she said, confused, "you're telling me they're just buddies?" Susie hesitated. Tate doesn't call it friendship, but yeah, that's what it fits. Bree let out a short, incredulous breath. No way, I don't even sleep like that with people I've dated for 6 months. Anna shook her head slowly. Look at them, he's wrapped around him like it's instinct. You don't accidentally spoon someone like that. And his face, Bree added, pointing softly. His nose is literally in Noah's neck. That's not neutral, that's intimate. Susie tried again. They've known each other forever, it's a comfort thing. A comfort thing? Anna repeated. I have childhood friends, I don't curl my whole body around them and breathe them in. Bree crossed her arms, clearly unsettled, not judgmental, just stunned. If my boyfriend slept like that with someone and told me they were just friends, I'd think I was losing my mind. Anna nodded. Same, that's how married people sleep, or people who are in love and don't even think about it anymore. They watched us a moment longer. Noah shifted in his sleep, pressing back into me without waking, like his body knew exactly where it belonged. I tightened around him reflexively, my chin dipping closer to his shoulder. Bree swallowed. See, that right there, that's unconscious attachment. Susie said the conversation shifted then, not into judgment but into bafflement. I don't get it, Anna whispered, genuinely confused. Why is Tate okay calling this companionship? Bree nodded slowly. Yeah, that's what I can't wrap my head around. He seems happy settling for something so small when anyone with eyes can see it's not. Susie watched us sleep, uneasy. He really believes it is companionship. Anna frowned, still studying us. But look at them, that's not someone tolerating mere companionship. That's someone already living inside something bigger and not questioning it. Bree crouched a little, squinting. Wait, oh wow, look at Tate's hand. Susie followed her gaze. My fingers were intertwined with Noah's, fully laced together, palms fitted like they'd been searching for each other even in sleep. Anna exhaled softly. That's beautiful, I'm going to cry. She wiped a tear from her eyes, moved by what she saw. And unmistakable, Bree added. People don't do that by accident, that's not comfort only, that's the connection. Susie rubbed her arms. Tate would say it's a habit. Anna shook her head. Habit doesn't explain that. She gestured to the way my body curved around Noah, protective and reverent at the same time. He's not clinging, he's choosing, over and over. Bree tilted her head. So why does Tate stop at companionship? Why is he satisfied pretending this is all it is? No one answered right away. Then Anna said quietly, maybe because calling it companionship is the only way he's ever been allowed to keep it. Bree's voice softened. Yeah, maybe companion is the safest word he knows for love. They stood there a moment longer. Noah shifted in his sleep, squeezing my hand slightly, and without waking I tightened my fingers back around his. Our breathing stayed matched, effortless. Susie swallowed. He doesn't even see what he already has. Anna nodded. That's the strange part. He's happy with less, not because it is less but because he doesn't know he's allowed to want more. Bree gave a sad smile. Anyone watching this would think they're already together. And not new together, Anna added. Old soul, been each other's home 4 years together. They left quietly, feeling like witnesses to something unfinished. And the thing that haunted them most wasn't that we were pretending. My calling it companionship while my body, my hands, my breath, and my heart were already telling a much truer story was obscene. Susie said it was my fingers that finally undid them, not the spooning, not the way our bodies fit, the fingers. Anna noticed the second. Bree squinted. Oh my God. Anna's voice dropped. That's not incidental. Bree shook her head slowly. People don't lace fingers like that unless it means something. Susie swallowed. He does it all the time, he doesn't notice. That's the thing, Anna said softly. You notice when you're doing something unnatural or non-friendship behavior. This, she gestured again, this is muscle memory, this is instinct. They watched as Noah shifted slightly, their hands separating for half a second. Then, without either of us waking, my fingers searched and found his again, reweaving themselves as they'd panicked at the loss. Bree pressed a hand to her chest. Did you see that? He reached. And Tate responded, Anna added, still asleep. As if to prove her point, my thumb stroked once across Noah's knuckle, slow, absent, intimate, and then stilled, still holding. Bree breathed out. Anyone with eyes would see it. And anyone with a heart, Anna added. And the strangest part, the part that haunted them, wasn't that my fingers were so clearly entwined with Noah's. It was that even then, even like that, I was content calling it companionship, while my hands were already telling the truth I couldn't yet bear to name. Susie said it changed again when Noah moved. At first, it was just a shift, him turning slightly, his forehead brushing my collarbone. Then, half asleep, he tucked his face fully against my chest, nose pressed into the fabric of my shirt like that was where it belonged. On his breath caught, oh. My fingers were still intertwined with his, unmoving, anchored, and without waking my other hand slid up into his hair, slow, familiar, stroking from crown to nape in that absent, soothing rhythm I'd used 1,000 times, protective, tender, automatic. Bree whispered almost to herself, "That's, wow. That's not friendship," Anna said softly, not accusing, just stating a fact. "That's intimacy, that's caretaking." Susie nodded, torn. "He does that when Noah's anxious, even asleep." They watched as Noah shifted again, as he might pull away, his body testing distance. For a second there was space, barely an inch between us, and then, still asleep, I tightened. My arm curved, firm and unmistakable, pulling Noah back against my chest. My chin dipped toward his hair. My hand in his hair stilled him there, gentle but certain, like my body refused the idea of separation. Anna swallowed hard. "Did you see that?" Bree nodded. "He didn't even wake up, he just reclaimed him." Susie's voice wavered. "Tate would swear this means nothing." Anna shook her head slowly. "Then Tate doesn't understand his own body." Tate shifted in his sleep, turning just enough to settle more comfortably against Noah. For a moment he rested with his head over Noah's heart, but then slowly, instinctively, he moved again. Half awake and guided by nothing but comfort, Tate crawled further on top of him until he was stretched out fully, stomach to stomach, draped over Noah like a blanket. It wasn't clumsy or sudden, it was gradual, natural, like his body already knew exactly where it wanted to be. His cheek found its place against Noah's chest again, but now the rest of him followed. One leg slid slightly between Noah's, his arms loosely folded against him, their bodies aligned in a quiet, unconscious closeness. Tate exhaled softly, settling his full weight there, completely at ease. Noah stirred just enough to respond. His arms shifted, one coming up more securely around Tate's back, the other resting along his side. Even asleep, he adjusted to hold him, his hands spreading gently as if making sure Tate stayed there. His breathing deepened again after a moment, steady and calm, like nothing about this was unusual. From the hallway, the door was barely open, just enough for Bree, Susie, and Anna to peer through. They had come up the stairs mid-conversation, but now all three stood frozen. Bree blinked slowly. "Oh my, did you just see that?" she whispered. Susie nodded without looking away. "He literally climbed on top of him," she murmured. Anna leaned in closer to the crack in the door, her eyebrows lifting as she took in the full picture. Tate completely draped over Noah, their bodies lined up, Noah's arms naturally holding him there. She let out a quiet, stunned breath. "Okay," Anna whispered, a hint of disbelief in her voice. "That's not even subtle anymore." Inside, Tate shifted again slightly, pressing closer for warmth, his fingers curling faintly against Noah's side. Noah responded in kind, his hand moving in a slow, absent-minded stroke up Tate's back before settling again like a quiet reassurance. Bree swallowed. "That's not how people sleep," she said softly. That's like a full-on cuddle puddle." Susie gave a small, knowing look. "That's beyond a cuddle." Anna shook her head a little, though she couldn't stop watching. "They're completely wrapped around each other," she murmured, "and they don't even realize it." For a moment, the three of them just stood there, whispering, fading into silence as they watched the gentle rise and fall of their breathing. Tate's body moved slightly with each breath Noah took, the two of them completely in sync. Anna spoke again, quieter this time. "You can't fake that." Bree glanced at her. "Fake what?" Anna tilted her head toward the room. "That, whatever that is, you don't end up like that unless you feel safe, like really safe." Susie nodded slowly. "Yeah, it's kind of obvious." Inside, nothing changed. Tate stayed draped over Noah, fully relaxed as he belonged there. Noah's arms remained around him, steady and protective even in sleep. Bree let out a soft breath. "It's kind of sweet." Anna gave a small smile. "It is ridiculously sweet." Susie added quietly, "They just don't know it yet." The three girls lingered for another second, then Bree carefully reached for the door and nudged it a little more closed, making sure it didn't creak. "Let them sleep," she whispered. Anna nodded. "Yeah, they look like they need it." Susie gave one last glance through the narrowing gap before it shut, and honestly, they look like they need each other too. My mind didn't know my feelings, but my body did. It always did. The body keeps its own records, files things away without asking permission. Mine reacted long before I had words, long before I had permission to want. I just didn't see it then, not while I was asleep to myself, not while I mistook numbness for safety. I learned desire as sensation, not thought, a tightening in the chest, a pull toward warmth. The way my hand would linger too long before I noticed. The mind is obedient, it follows rules, the body is honest. That difference nearly ruined me. I would give anything to be 18 again and hold Noah's hand as his partner. Not secretly, not like a mistake, just openly, stupidly, the way young people do when they don't yet know how easily love can be punished. I don't want to rewrite history, I want to inhabit it. I want one moment where my wanting wasn't already paired with fear. As a kid, I wasn't allowed to love boys or girls. Love itself was forbidden unless it followed a script written by someone else. I didn't need it explained twice. I knew what would happen if I broke that rule. I had seen the consequences. I had memorized them. Silence wasn't a choice, it was conditioning. So I learned to disconnect. I let my mind patrol my body like an officer, shutting things down before they reached consciousness. I slept through myself. I became very good at not noticing. People mistake that for innocence or discipline or morality. It's none of those, it's survival. That's why Noah mattered so much. He didn't wake my mind, he woke my body. He made me aware of what I had been trained not to feel, and once you feel something after years of absence, it's unbearable to pretend you don't. Maybe that's why I still grieve that version of us, not because it was perfect but because it was possible. Because for a brief, dangerous stretch of time, my body knew what partnership felt like, even if my mind spent years pretending it didn't. I imagine myself younger, 18, and unafraid in the careless way only the untested can be. In the fantasy, I know my heart, not intellectually, not as a theory, but the way you know hunger or cold. I don't argue with it, I don't interrogate it, I let it speak and I listen without flinching. We're outside because at 18, everything important happens outdoors. Late afternoon tipping into evening, the light thinning, turning gold and then copper. The air smells like cut grass and pavement that's been warm all day. Somewhere nearby, people are laughing but not at us. The sound is ambient, harmless. Noah is next to me, close enough that our shoulders touch without either of us adjusting. That's how I know it's real in the fantasy, no choreography, no calculation. My hand finds his without ceremony, fingers brushing first. Accidental in a way that's never accidental. There's a pause, the kind that could still become retreat, and then he curls his hand into mine like it's always belonged there. Skin on skin, warm, solid, a quiet click inside my chest like something locking into place. I breathe differently with him, slower, deeper. I don't realize how shallow my breath has been until it changes. My body relaxes before my mind has time to interfere. In the fantasy, the mind stays quiet. It doesn't rush in with warnings or rules or consequences. It doesn't say this will cost you, it lets the moment exist. Noah squeezes my hand once just to check, just to ask. I squeeze back, that's the entire conversation. We walk like that, hands linked, arms swinging slightly out of sync. I'm aware of everything, the sound of our shoes on the sidewalk, the brush of his sleeve against my wrist, the way the evening cools the back of my neck. I'm aware of how ordinary it feels. That's the most radical part, not the desire, the normalcy. In this version of me, there is no fear attached to wanting. Wanting doesn't feel like a trapdoor, it feels like direction. I turn my head and look at him. He's talking about something small, something forgettable, and I'm watching his mouth instead of listening, not hungrily, just attentively, like I'm allowed to notice what I like. When he catches me looking, he smiles, soft and unguarded, and doesn't ask what's wrong. Nothing is wrong. I don't think about what will happen if someone sees us. I don't scan for witnesses. I don't pre-grieve the loss. I stay in my body. I stay in the moment. I am 18. And the strangest part, the part that still hurts, is how little it takes. Just a hand held openly, just breathe syncing with another person's, just the knowledge clear and unpunished that this is my partner. That's the fantasy, not that love saves us, not that the world changes, not that nothing bad ever happens, but that for one evening I know my heart when it speaks and I believe it deserves to exist. I knew then that the universe would not let me leave him unnamed. Some stories circle their truth forever, but this one had reached its edge. If I didn't find Noah, the silence would finish what it started years ago. I had to tell him the truth, not the softened version I had lived with, not the one that made me survivable, but the whole ugly architecture of it. I loved him, I didn't act, I used him, I chose him anyway. Those sentences don't belong together, but neither did we, and that never stopped us. I loved him long before I admitted it to myself. Loved him in the way you love when love has no future, quietly, obediently, without demand. I loved him with my body first and my conscience last. By the time my mind caught up, the rules were already in place and I knew exactly what would happen if I broke them. So I didn't. I would have died, bit, screamed, and killed so Noah would never know what terror felt like. Noah would never regret being alive or view his name and skin as unnatural, disgusting, and an affront to God as I did. I need him to know that my silence wasn't indifference. It was fear with good posture. It was a life spent translating desire into something safer: friendship, loyalty, proximity. I didn't reach for his hand because I believed doing so would cost us everything. I believed restraint was protection. But restraint has consequences. I used Noah not cruelly, not consciously. I used the steadiness of his presence to anchor myself. I used the normalcy of our bond to pass as intact. I used the fact that he stayed to convince myself that I hadn't ruined him. For years, I let his constancy stand in for courage. That's the truth that burns. And still, I chose him, over and over again, not because he was available, not because time had already been invested, not because leaving felt complicated. I chose him because he saw me closer than anyone else ever dared to look, even without knowing why he was looking. I chose him because my body recognized him as home long before my life allowed that word. 22 years is not an accident. It's not convenient. It's not confusion. It's a series of daily decisions made under the weight of a truth I refuse to speak. I don't know what he will do with this knowledge. I don't know if it will feel like betrayal or belated honesty or both. I only know that the book cannot end with me still hiding behind the same silence that shaped everything. The story began with him because I was afraid. It has to end with him because I'm no longer pretending that fear was love's opposite. Across town, Tate stepped into his new apartment, still seething from the night before. He'd left Chloe recently and he needed to figure things out, but the truth was he still didn't have control over anything, least of all Noah. He dropped his keys onto the counter and grabbed the mail, tossing it onto the kitchen table. Most of it was meaningless: bills, junk, advertisements, but one envelope made him freeze. It was an overnight service posted last night, and Tate was worried about what was inside the mail. The handwriting, precise, cold, deliberate, made his chest tighten instantly. He tore it open, heart hammering. It was from the cunt who abandoned him. The lying, deceitful, cowardly cunt he loved left him another rejection. That cunt had broken his heart when Noah left the morning after they had sex for the first time. Noah Lunis and Riley Shore are delighted to announce their engagement on June 12, 1996. After 2 years of friendship, growth, and shared dreams, Noah and Riley have chosen to embark on this new chapter together. Their love is built on trust, stability, and mutual respect, a partnership grounded in honesty, support, and shared laughter. Noah and Riley are excited to step into this next chapter, hand in hand, ready to create a home and a life filled with love, routine, and unwavering devotion to one another. Tate's stomach dropped in his gut, his chest tightened, his pulse roared in his ears. The words blurred, but the meaning was crystal clear. Noah was moving on. Noah was starting a life with someone else, someone steady, someone reliable, someone not him. Tate's jaw clenched until it hurt. Anger flared first, pure, violent anger, and then, as the words sank deeper, it twisted into something darker: jealousy, bitter and all-consuming. Their love is built on trust, stability, and mutual respect. The first thing Tate noticed was the date. June 12th. For a second he just stared at the invitation in silence, like his brain refused to process what he was seeing. Then slowly, painfully, understanding settled into his chest. June 12th. The day Joey died. And somehow even worse, the exact same day Tate had married Chloe 2 years ago. Tate's grip tightened around the invitation automatically. The expensive cardstock bent slightly beneath his fingers. "No way," he muttered under his breath. His eyes stayed locked on the date printed beneath Noah and Riley's names. Out of all 365 days in the year, Noah had chosen that one. A hollow feeling opened in Tate's stomach. He looked back down at the invitation again, rereading it like maybe the date would magically change the second time. It didn't. And suddenly, memories started hitting him all at once. Joey's funeral. Noah was crying silently in the passenger seat afterward because he'd been trying to stay strong for everybody else. Chloe smiled at Tate during their wedding while Noah avoided eye contact with him almost the entire night. Everything attached to that date felt cursed now. Tate let out a hollow laugh under his breath. Noah was giving Tate the middle finger by marrying that prick Riley on Tate's wedding anniversary. "Noah notices everything," he whispered to himself. "Every anniversary, every bad memory, every detail." Noah remembered things most people forgot within hours: tiny expressions, offhand comments, the exact wording of arguments from years earlier. There was no chance this was accidental. None. Tate stared down at the invitation again, jaw tightening harder the longer he looked at it. If this wasn't a deliberate message from Noah, Tate didn't know what it was. It felt calculated, precise, cruel in a strangely elegant way Noah had never been capable of before. Almost like Noah wanted him to understand something without saying it directly. "I don't care anymore." Or maybe worse. "You don't matter anymore." Tate swallowed hard. For years, Noah had revolved around him emotionally. Every important date in Noah's life was somehow connected back to Tate in one way or another. Birthdays, holidays, anniversaries, fights, reconciliations. But this felt different. This felt like Noah taking ownership of something Tate once believed belonged to him forever. "He's replacing the memory," Tate whispered suddenly. His eyes stayed fixed on the invitation. "June 12th used to belong to us." The words came out quieter than he intended. Tate rubbed a hand over his face slowly, exhaustion pulling at every part of him. Everything important in Noah's life had always somehow circled back to Tate. And now Noah was taking the worst date between them and attaching Riley to it instead. The more Tate thought about it, the worse it felt. Joey's death, Chloe, Noah's engagement, Riley. It was like Noah had gathered every painful thing attached to Tate and shoved it all into one date on purpose. Almost like he wanted Tate to suffer every June 12th for the rest of his life, the same way Noah had suffered. And maybe the worst part. Tate couldn't even fully blame him. He stared at the invitation again. Noah Lunis and Riley Shore. June 12th. The words blurred slightly for a second. "He's really going to do it," Tate whispered. "Marry somebody else." The realization settled into his chest with brutal force. Like some part of Tate had genuinely believed Noah would always leave a door open for him, no matter how many times Tate walked away. "I know why he picked that date," Tate muttered quietly. "Because Noah wanted him to be uncomfortable. Noah wanted him to remember. Noah wanted him to sit there at that wedding with Joey's death hanging over him while Riley stood beside Noah wearing the life Tate used to think belonged to him. It was revenge without Noah ever having to say a cruel word out loud. And somehow that felt exactly like Noah now, quiet, calculated pain instead of screaming matches. Tate looked back down at the invitation one last time before tossing it onto the counter, like touching it suddenly hurt too much. But even after he looked away, the date stayed burned into his mind. June 12th. Noah knew exactly what he was doing. And somehow that hurt even more than if it had been accidental. Noah hadn't even had the decency to come to Tate's wedding 2 years ago. That realization hit Tate almost as hard as the date itself. He stared at the invitation again, bitterness rising slowly in his chest. When he had married Chloe, Noah hadn't shown up. No dramatic interruption, no emotional speech, no desperate last attempt to stop him. Nothing. Just an empty chair and silence. At the time, Tate had told himself Noah was being selfish, bitter, petty. But now, staring at Noah and Riley's wedding invitation, Tate suddenly wondered if maybe it had never mattered enough to Noah to attend in the first place. Now that Tate understood why Joey was so important to Noah, he couldn't help but wonder if it was because Noah had once slept with Tate's uncle. Maybe in some strange way Noah wanted Joey to remain a part of his life, part of his engagement, and eventually his future marriage to Riley. Perhaps having Joey there made the future he was building with Riley feel somehow more connected to the past he had shared with Joey. The thought made his stomach twist unpleasantly. Tate remembered spending half his wedding day looking toward the entrance without even realizing he was doing it. Every time the doors opened, some pathetic part of him had expected Noah to walk in, angry, heartbroken, still wanting him. But Noah never came. And afterward Noah hadn't acknowledged the marriage at all, no screaming or fights, no emotional collapse, nothing. At the time, Tate convinced himself Noah was trying to punish him by acting indifferent. Now he wasn't so sure. Maybe Noah truly hadn't cared. Or maybe worse, maybe Noah had cared enough to stay away completely. Tate had heard from Chloe that his wife had offered Noah friendship and seemed to desire a closeness with the man who was considered Tate's surrogate brother. Noah had simply said, "No, thank you," and told Chloe that he didn't need to be her friend. Noah had made it pretty clear that he wanted nothing to do with Tate or Tate's new life. Anytime Tate even thought about bringing Noah up around his other friends or his mother, nobody would tell him anything, and after a while, Tate stopped asking. It wasn't until he had returned from his honeymoon that he began to notice. After the second Sunday dinner Noah didn't attend, Tate finally realized that Noah wasn't coming anymore because Tate or Chloe was there. Noah wasn't simply busy or avoiding family dinners. He was hiding from them. The closeness and physical intimacy that Tate and Noah had shared in the Rambler before Tate had left to get engaged were gone. Noah was always guarded around Tate now. It was as though a new wall had grown up around him. The wall that had once separated Noah from Tate, the wall built around the fact that Noah was gay, was no longer there, or at least it wasn't as tall as it had once been. Tate could sense that the wall was still there, but it had changed. It was no longer protecting Noah from the truth of who he was. Now it seemed to be protecting Noah from Tate. Tate rubbed his hand over his jaw slowly, trying to ignore the hollow feeling spreading through him. He looked back down at the announcement again. Maybe Noah didn't even want him there now. The possibility settled into Tate's chest immediately. Riley probably made Noah send it. That sounded more believable than Noah genuinely wanting Tate present while he married someone else. The more Tate thought about it, the more certain he became. Especially not after last night. Tate's jaw tightened instantly at the thought. The memories came flooding back too easily. Noah is beneath him. Noah was pulling him closer like he still belonged there. The anger and desperation between them were dissolving into something dangerously familiar. And afterward, Noah had looked at him with that awful expression Tate couldn't stop thinking about. Not love. Not tenderness. Almost grief. Like sleeping with Tate had confirmed something painful Noah already knew about himself. Tate swallowed hard. Maybe this announcement wasn't peace at all. Maybe Noah wanted him there specifically to humiliate him. The thought dug sharply into his chest. Maybe Noah wanted Tate sitting in that church, forced to watch him marry Riley only months after they'd slept together. Forced to sit there knowing Noah had chosen someone else anyway. And honestly, Tate couldn't even say Noah wouldn't be justified. He let out a bitter laugh under his breath. Jesus Christ, he muttered quietly. The entire thing suddenly felt cruel in a way only Noah could manage now, quiet cruelty instead of loud cruelty, emotional precision instead of chaos. It almost reminded Tate of Joey. Not the cruelty itself but the intelligence behind it, the calculated emotional awareness. Old Noah would have screamed, broken things, started a fight. This version of Noah was worse somehow. This version smiled politely while driving the knife in slowly. Tate sank down into the kitchen chair heavily, staring blankly at the invitation. Maybe Noah wanted revenge. Maybe he wanted Tate uncomfortable, miserable, jealous. Or maybe Noah simply wanted Tate to finally understand what it felt like to lose him permanently. That possibility hurt the most. Because for years, Tate had always secretly believed Noah would stay emotionally tethered to him no matter what happened. No matter who Tate married, no matter how many times they hurt each other. Noah always came back emotionally, even when he physically walked away. But this invitation didn't feel emotional. It felt final. Like Noah was drawing a line straight through the middle of their entire history and choosing Riley on the other side of it. Tate looked down at the gold lettering again. Noah Lunis and Riley Shore. The names looked wrong together. Cold. Tate hated how irrationally angry that made him. Because Riley wasn't supposed to be standing next to Noah, Tate was. That thought came so naturally that it startled him. He leaned back in the chair slowly, running both hands over his face in frustration. What made it worse was knowing he had absolutely no right to feel possessive anymore. He had married Chloe. He had walked away from Noah first. He had spent years making Noah feel temporary, replaceable, and emotionally unsafe. And still some selfish part of him expected Noah to remain untouched, waiting, loyal. The realization made Tate feel sick with himself. But none of that stopped the jealousy clawing through him anyway. Because Noah had slept with him last night. That was the part Tate couldn't get past. Noah had looked at him like he still loved him, touched him like he still remembered every part of him. People didn't do that if they were truly over someone. Right. Unless maybe Noah hated him enough to use intimacy as closure. The thought made Tate's chest tighten painfully. Maybe last night hadn't meant longing for Noah at all. Maybe it had meant goodbye. Tate stared silently at the invitation again, unable to stop replaying every second of the night before in his head. The way Noah had kissed him with anger underneath it, the way his hands trembled afterward, the silence between them once everything was over. And then Noah left without looking back for very long. At the time, Tate told himself Noah was overwhelmed emotionally. Now he wondered if Noah had already made his decision before Tate even touched him. Maybe Noah slept with him one time just to prove to himself he could walk away afterward. The idea hollowed Tate out completely. Because if that was true, then Noah really was gone this time. He slammed the letter onto the table. The words seemed to mock him. Trust, stability, mutual respect, these were things he had never been able to give Noah, and now Noah had found them in someone else. Someone else who would hold him the way Tate never could. Hopelessness crept in next, cold and paralyzing. 20 years of love, longing, unspoken words, gone. Noah wasn't waiting. Noah was done. Noah was building a future, a life without him. Tate sank into the couch, staring at the crumpled announcement in his hands, the edges cutting into his palms. The jealousy clawed at him, tearing through every rational thought. His mind raced with every memory, every touch, every whisper he'd shared with Noah. And now it was all tainted, consumed by Riley. He felt sick, furious, and desperate. His own emotions spiraled out of control, part grief, part rage, part insane, unrelenting longing. He wanted to scream, he wanted to tear the world apart, he wanted Noah. And yet, he knew it was gone, hopelessly, irreversibly gone. Tate's eyes burned as he pressed the letter to his chest, inhaling shakily. Every fiber of him ached with jealousy and despair. Noah was choosing someone else, building a life that Tate could never be a part of. And in that moment he realized something he'd always feared: he was powerless. Completely. Tate sank into the couch of his new house, the engagement announcement crumpled in his hands. Every line of it burned like acid. Noah Lunis and Riley Shore are delighted to announce. Their love is built on trust, stability, and mutual respect. His chest tightened as his mind betrayed him. He imagined Noah with Riley, the touch, the closeness, the way Riley could make Noah laugh, smile, lean in. The thought twisted something inside him, raw and vicious. Riley is touching him, Riley fucking him. The images were unbearable, like knives scraping across his heart. Noah had chosen that man over him, and he wouldn't let that slide. There was only one thing Tate thought he could do. He had to call Noah. Not tomorrow, not after he calmed down, now. Because there was no way Noah could actually go through with marrying Riley. The thought alone made Tate feel physically sick. Riley was supposed to be temporary, a rebound, a distraction Noah used to punish him. Not a husband. Never a husband. Tate stood abruptly from the kitchen table, packing across the room while dragging a hand through his dark hair. His heart was pounding hard enough to make him feel dizzy. No, he muttered to himself, no, absolutely not. He laughed once under his breath, but it sounded unstable. Noah's just angry. That had to be it. Noah was hurt, bitter, trying to prove something, trying to regain control after years of feeling emotionally destroyed by Tate. But marriage. Noah couldn't seriously love Riley enough to marry him. Could he? The thought cut through Tate so sharply that he physically stopped packing. For years, Tate had always secretly believed that no matter who Noah dated, no matter how many times they separated, Noah belonged to him in some impossible emotional way. Not ownership exactly. Something worse. Certainty. Tate had always been certain Noah would never truly give himself to someone else completely. And now, suddenly, there was an engagement announcement sitting on his kitchen counter proving otherwise. No, Tate whispered again, more desperately this time, he's not marrying him. His breathing had become uneven now, agitated. Because Riley wasn't the man Noah was supposed to marry. Tate was. The realization slammed into him so hard it almost made him nauseous. Tate hated Riley. Not because Riley was cruel or manipulative or dangerous. That almost would have been easier. No, Tate hated Riley because Riley represented something Tate had never been able to give Noah. Stability. Safety. Peace. And deep down, Tate knew Noah deserved those things. That somehow only made him resent Riley more. Because Riley was standing inside a future Tate always assumed would somehow remain emotionally reserved for him. Tate's jaw tightened painfully. I swear to God, he muttered under his breath, if Noah marries that guy. He couldn't even finish the sentence. Tate wanted to put his hands on any guy who dared to offer Noah flowers and a future. The rage and panic inside him felt too tangled together to separate. Without thinking any further, Tate snatched his phone off the counter and typed in Noah's number from memory. He didn't even have to think about the digits. Years later, his fingers still knew exactly where to go automatically. The line rang once. Then a mechanical beeping sound interrupted the silence. A woman's voice filled the speaker. I'm sorry, the number you have dialed is no longer in service. Please try again. Tate frowned immediately. What? He pulled the phone away from his ear, staring at the screen in confusion before redialing faster this time. Again the beeping noise sounded. Again the same cold robotic voice answered. I'm sorry, the number you have dialed is no longer in service. Please try again. He had forgotten that Noah had changed his number a few months earlier when Noah told Tate he was done with him. That was why Tate couldn't reach Noah. Then laughed sharply under his breath. Tate shook his head hard, packing again now. Tate suddenly felt something ugly twist inside him, something wounded and furious and deeply humiliated. After everything between them. After last night. Tate laughed bitterly, packing faster now. Oh, that's really mature, Noah. His voice echoed harshly through the empty kitchen. You sleep with me and then disappear. The anger in his chest kept building. You think you can just erase me, Tate snapped at nobody. You think changing your number recently suddenly changes everything. He dialed again anyway. The robotic voice answered once more. I'm sorry. Before the sentence could finish, Tate lost his temper completely. Sexual jealousy so intense that Tate's chest clenched in fury and indignation. With a furious shout, he hurled the phone across the kitchen. The device smashed violently against the wall before crashing onto the hardwood floor in shattered pieces. The sound echoed through the house. Silence followed immediately afterward. Tate stood there breathing heavily, chest rising and falling hard while pieces of broken glass glittered across the floor near his feet. For several seconds he just stared at the destruction. Then he laughed quietly to himself again, but there was something genuinely unhinged underneath it now. Unbelievable. He dragged both hands through his hair aggressively. You don't get to do this to me, Noah. No one ignores Tate Blue. His voice cracked slightly on Noah's name. You don't get to sleep with me one night and marry somebody else the next. The words sounded almost betrayed. Tate turned away from the broken phone, packing again. Because underneath all the anger, underneath the possessiveness and jealousy, there was something else making him panic this badly. Fear. Real fear. For the first time in years, Noah actually felt unreachable. Not emotionally distant. Gone. And Tate suddenly realized he had absolutely no idea how to handle that. His breathing slowed unevenly as another thought entered his mind. Dahlia's house. His mom was having brunch and he could ask her how to get Noah back. Maybe Noah would be there and Tate might get laid again. Tate's hand lowered from his waist to his crotch where he groped his clothed dick, which was so hard for the last 3 hours caused Tate to grimace. His cock was standing erect and angry, forcing Tate to stand in an awkward position so the zipper wouldn't press on the head. Tate might get lucky at Dahlia's and Noah would already be there. Tate hoped that before lunch he would get laid again so his privates wouldn't cause him any additional pain. He had to get his dick back inside Noah's ass or Tate would lose his mind. Tate's eyes darkened immediately. "Oh, I'm going," he muttered. There was no hesitation anymore. He was absolutely going. Because if Noah thought changing his number and hiding behind Riley was enough to end this between them, he was out of his mind. Tate clenched his jaw hard. The next time he got his hands on that stubborn blonde cunt, Noah was going to remember exactly why walking away from Tate had never been simple. And maybe that was toxic, maybe it was selfish, maybe it was completely unfair after everything Tate had already put him through. Tate didn't care anymore. All he knew was that the idea of Noah marrying Riley made something violent and desperate wake up inside him. And for the first time in a very long time, Tate genuinely wasn't sure what he was capable of doing about it. Tate felt a sharp pain, sexual jealousy at the thought of Noah being intimate with his new fiancée, Riley. Tate wanted Noah all to himself, even if that meant fighting off the competition. As far as Tate was concerned, nobody else was wealthier and nobody could provide Noah with more than he could. Whatever Riley could offer Noah, Tate was certain he could offer more. "No," Tate whispered again, more desperately this time, "he's not marrying him." His breathing had become uneven now, agitated. Tate hated Riley. Not because Riley was cruel or manipulative or dangerous. That almost would have been easier. No, Tate hated Riley because Riley represented something Tate had never been able to give Noah. Stability. Safety. Peace. And deep down, Tate knew Noah deserved those things. That somehow only made him resent Riley more. Because Riley was standing inside a future Tate always assumed would somehow remain emotionally reserved for him. Tate's knuckles cracked as he clenched his fists. He couldn't stop thinking about Noah and Riley together in bed. If Riley had put his hands on Noah, Tate knew exactly what he would want to do to him, and if Noah dared to go to bed with Riley, Tate knew he would lose his temper. Tate had never been jealous, territorial, or possessive over any of his casual partners. Once he was finished with someone, they ceased to exist in his mind. But Noah was different. Even when they were nothing more than platonic buddies, Tate had never been willing to tolerate competition for Noah's attention. If Riley dared to sleep with Noah, Tate decided Riley had better never find himself alone in the same room with Tate. Tate's jaw tightened painfully. "I swear to God," he muttered under his breath, "if Noah marries that guy." He couldn't even finish the sentence. Tate wanted to put his hands on any guy who dared to offer Noah flowers and a future. The rage and panic inside him felt too tangled together to separate. "You think you can just erase me," Tate repeated to nobody. "You think changing your number suddenly changes everything." Tate thought while driving his car towards his childhood home, thinking about Noah marrying that jerk Riley. A jealousy unlike anything he had felt before surged through him. It wasn't just anger at Riley, not just frustration at Noah. It was an uncomfortable, gnawing jealousy that clawed at his chest and refused to let go. Tate's hands shook. His vision blurred. His body felt like it was both burning and freezing at the same time. He loathed Riley with every fiber of his being, and yet it wasn't rational hate. It was an obsession fueled by helplessness, by longing, by decades of being denied. Noah had moved on. Noah had wanted someone steady, someone safe, someone Tate could never be. Riley dared to insert himself between Tate and Noah. The situation made Tate seethe in anger and jealousy. Thinking about that blonde asshole fucking Noah each night caused Tate to see stars. Had Riley fucked Noah? Tate couldn't stop thinking about Riley fucking Noah, even though Riley and Noah were engaged. The knowledge that another man had a legal claim to Noah's body made Tate's jaw clench, and his fists tighten every time the thought surfaced. It didn't matter what the ring on Noah's finger said. Tate refused to accept that anyone else had the right to touch what he had already claimed so thoroughly. Scene retracted, read extended version on Wattpad. He wanted to choke Riley until the other man understood exactly who Noah belonged to. In his darkest fantasies, Tate pictured wrapping his hands around Riley's throat while Noah watched, forcing the fiancé to witness exactly how thoroughly Tate could wreck the body Riley thought he owned. If Tate ever discovered that something carnal had been going on between Riley and Noah beyond the engagement, the consequences would be immediate and brutal. He would drag Riley into the nearest empty room, slam him against the wall, and wrap his fingers around the man's windpipe until Riley's face turned purple. The fantasy played out in vivid detail, Tate's forearm pressed against Riley's throat, cutting off air while he growled every filthy thing he planned to do to Noah as punishment. He would make Riley watch while he bent Noah over the nearest piece of furniture, yanked his pants down, and drove have sex with the blonde. Scene retracted, read extended version on Wattpad. The mere thought of Noah finding another man attractive made Tate's stomach twist with nausea. He pictured Noah's eyes lingering on some stranger at a bar, his cheeks flushing pink the way they did when Tate touched him, his lips parting on a soft gasp of interest. Worse still was the image of Noah actually bending over for someone else. Tate was in love, completely obsessively, possessively in love with Noah. The thought of his beloved submitting to another man's advances made him physically ill. Noah's body was sacred territory, and the idea of anyone else claiming it felt like a violation of something holy. The only person who should have the pleasure of bending Noah over a piece of furniture, enjoying the blonde's physical company in private, and maintaining exclusive access to Noah. Anyone else who tried to encroach on Tate's intimate access with Noah would face consequences they couldn't even imagine. Tate would protect the object of his affection from men who wanted Noah, and if he ever found out that Noah had allowed another man to be inside him, the punishment would be swift and thorough. Tate would spank Noah until his ass was bright red and burning, each slap of his palm against those perfect cheeks a reminder of who owned him. He would bend Noah over his knee and deliver blow after blow until Noah was sobbing and apologizing, promising that no one else would ever touch him again. Scene retracted, read extended version on Wattpad. Tate's hands balled into fists. His mind raced with every memory, every regret, every reckless choice that had led him here. He wanted to scream, to tear the walls down, to force Noah to look at him the way he knew Noah could, the way he'd always wanted. But he was powerless, hopeless, and every fiber of his being burned with a jealous, insane need that he could not name, only feel. And in that desperation, Tate realized something terrifying. He couldn't or wouldn't live without Noah, yet Noah was slipping through his fingers forever. But now, that little cunt was engaged to someone else, parading around like he hadn't shattered me with his lies. 24 years of bullshit, hiding that he was gay, gaslighting me into thinking I was the crazy one for the tension between us. And then that note. I've had better. Fuck you, Noah, you haven't had better. No way in hell have you ever had better than me. Tate clenched his jaw. Noah was lying. He had to be. There was no way Noah had ever been with someone who could compare to him, and Tate knew that better than anyone. He had been with more women than he could remember, enough to know exactly what he was talking about. Noah was only saying it to be spiteful, to get under his skin, to hurt him. And it was working. Because Tate refused to believe Noah had ever wanted anyone more than he wanted him. There was no way Riley could have been better than Tate. No way he could have lasted longer, paid closer attention to Noah, or understood what Noah wanted the way Tate did. And judging by the sounds Noah had made the night before, Tate was still the king of Lowe's angels. Noah hadn't even remembered his name for a while. He had been completely lost in the moment, consumed by everything Tate had given him. So Noah's insult now felt hollow, almost as hollow as the memory Noah claimed to have of it. Tate had gone far beyond what he had ever done for anyone else. He had made certain Noah was happy, certain Noah felt wanted, certain that Noah knew exactly who he was with. And yet Noah had written such a rude diss and said he'd had better. Tate scowled. Yeah, he muttered bitterly, sure you have. Scrawled on a scrap of paper after he'd vanished from our bed, leaving me hard, aching, and alone. It burned in my gut, hotter than any orgasm we'd shared. Who the fuck did he think he was? I wanted to wrap my hands around his throat and squeeze until his eyes bulged, until he understood the betrayal he'd carved into me. Crush him, make him pay for every stolen moment, every fake smile. Squeezing Noah's throat was a fantasy, a way to understand and control my anger. Even in the moments of my worst fury towards Noah, like his imaginary betrayal or lying about being straight, I'd never put my hands on his body with the intention to hurt his beautiful neck or bruise any skin I touched. I committed a crime so no one would hurt Noah. It wouldn't make sense if I hurt the body of the boy I had protected my whole life. I only touched Noah to show love, desire, or attraction, not fury, hate, or abuse. I loved that cunt and no one, especially me, would cause him physical or emotional distress. My fists clenched at my sides, pulse thundering in my ears. Scene retracted, read extended version on Wattpad. I've had better. As if our night tangled in sweat and gasps meant nothing. As if the engagement band on his finger could erase the way he'd moaned my name, begging me to fill him deeper. That announcement hit like a freight train, engaged to some faceless prick, parading his normal life while I'd been choking on the truth for 24 years. He'd lied, twisted everything, made me doubt my own skin-crawling need for him. I fantasized about seeing Noah somewhere and confronting the tease with my hands. I would corner him in the hallway away from prying eyes, my body crowding his against the wall. His breath hitched, those wide eyes locking on mine, a mix of fear and that old fire flickering there. "Tate," he whispered, but I cut him off, my palms slamming flat against the wall beside his head, caging him in. My free hand shot to his belt, yanking it open with a sharp tug, the leather whipping through the loops like a promise of punishment. Tate stared at his phone for a long moment before dialing Susie. If Noah were anywhere, Susie would know. She always knew. She answered on the third ring. "Hello. Is Noah there?" Tate asked immediately. There was a pause on the other end, just long enough to be deliberate. "How's your wife, Tate?" Susie replied coolly. His jaw tightened. "Fuck you, don't start." "I'm not starting anything," she said. "I'm just asking how's Chloe." "We're done," he snapped. "You know that." "Are you?" Susie shot back. "Because from where I'm standing you're still married and Noah is getting married." Silence pressed heavily between them. "I annulled my marriage 2 weeks ago. Is he there?" Tate repeated, slower this time. "No," Susie said. "And even if he was, I wouldn't hand him over to you like a phone call is going to fix this." Tate's grip on the phone tightened. "I just need to talk to him." "You've needed to talk to him for years but didn't," she replied. "Now suddenly it's urgent." The line felt like a blade. "Tate," she continued, her tone softening just slightly, "he's trying to build something stable. You don't get to storm in because you're uncomfortable or need a good fuck." He exhaled sharply through his nose. "You're no help." "That's the point," she said. "Leave him alone and let that man finally have stability." The line went dead. Tate kept driving towards his childhood home while he dialed every friend Noah had, trying to locate the blood. Susie had always been Noah's shield, always the voice of reason, always in the way. Fine, if Noah wouldn't come to him, he'd move the board another way. At 10 that morning, Tate pulled into his mother's driveway. The house looked exactly the same, manicured lawn, pristine shutters, everything controlled and orderly, the opposite of the storm inside him. He killed the engine but didn't move for a moment. Asking for a favor here would cost him something, it always did. But Noah was slipping through his fingers. And Tate was done standing still. He stepped out of the car and walked to the door, rehearsing the words he hated needing. This wasn't about pride anymore. This was about not losing the only thing he'd ever loved. Morning light poured through the wide kitchen windows of Tate's house, catching dust motes in the air and glinting off polished countertops. The house felt traditional, carefully arranged furniture, framed family photos lining the hallway, a kind of quiet order that suggested expectations lived here. Noah's hand brushed Riley's as they stepped inside. "You okay?" Noah murmured. Riley gave him a small, steady smile. "I'm good, it's breakfast, not a trial." Noah huffed a soft laugh, but his shoulders were tight. Tate's mother appeared first, warm but observant. "You must be Riley," she said, offering her hand. "We've heard about you." Riley shook it gently. "I hope only good things," he replied, polite but relaxed. "Thank you for having us." Talia smiled, her hugs were firm and welcoming. "Breakfast is almost ready, sit please." The table was already set, coffee steaming, fruit arranged neatly, eggs and toast placed with care. Riley noticed the small details. He always did. He pulled out Noah's chair without thinking, and Noah's fingers brushed his in silent gratitude. Conversation began cautiously, where Riley worked, how they met, how long they'd been together. We've known each other for 2 years, Noah answered, glancing at Riley with a softness that didn't go unnoticed. And recently engaged, his mother added, eyes flicking toward Riley's hand. Riley felt the weight of the moment, but he didn't shrink from it. He rested his palm lightly over Noah's on the table. Yes, Riley said calmly, we are. There was a brief silence, just long enough to acknowledge the significance. Tate's mother cleared her throat gently. And how are you both feeling about everything? Riley understood what she meant, not just the engagement, the history, the past. He chose honesty. I feel grateful, Riley said. Noah and I took our time. We've been intentional about how we build things. We're not rushing towards marriage just because that's the next step. We want the foundation of our future to be strong first. We're committed to each other, and next June we'll start our life together. Noah's mom studied him. Marriage is serious. I agree, Riley replied evenly. It's not about the ring or the event, it's about showing up every day, communicating, not letting silence grow where truth should be. Noah glanced at him, eyes shining slightly. In the wedding, his mother asked softer now. Riley smiled. We want something meaningful, not extravagant, a ceremony that reflects who we are, close friends, family, a place that feels intimate. He looked at Noah briefly before continuing. We want it to be a celebration of choosing each other, not a performance. The tension in the room eased almost imperceptibly. Talia nodded once, and you're sure about this? Riley didn't hesitate. I've never been more sure about anything. Noah squeezed his hand under the table. I love your son, Riley added quietly, not just the easy parts, all of him, and I don't take that lightly. There it was, clear, direct, respectful. Tate's mother's expression softened. He deserves someone who's steady. He is steady, Riley replied gently, and I plan to be steady with him. Brunch continued more easily after that. Stories surfaced, childhood mishaps, embarrassing school moments. Riley listened attentively, laughed in the right places, and asked thoughtful questions. He wasn't trying to impress, he was trying to understand where Noah came from. At one point, Noah caught his eye across the table, something unspoken passing between them. You handled that perfectly, Noah said, exhaling like he'd been holding his breath for hours. Riley shrugged lightly. I meant everything I said. Noah's gaze softened. I know. Riley leaned against Noah's shoulder. I don't feel threatened by the past, he said quietly. I respect it, it shaped you, but it's not where you live anymore. Noah scooted closer. No, I will leave you. Riley smiled, brushing a thumb across Noah's knuckles. And about the wedding, Riley added playfully, I'm serious about keeping it intimate, but I do reserve the right to make you cry during my vows. Noah laughed. You absolutely will. They sat there a moment longer, sunlight streaming through the bay windows warming their shoulders, the weight of history no longer heavy, just part of the landscape. He wasn't just visiting a house. He was stepping into the next chapter, with confidence, with love, and with the quiet certainty that he and Noah were building something real. We're thinking a late afternoon ceremony, Noah continued, leaning forward slightly, then dinner and dancing inside the reception hall. It opens up to the terrace at sunset. It's simple but elegant, not over the top. Talia smiled. That sounds beautiful. I wanted June 12th for our special day so we could include Joey, who meant something to me. Even though the guy can't come, I'd like to remember him every time I remember our ceremony. We're estimating around 100 guests, Noah added. Friends, extended family, some of Riley's business connections. It's smaller than I originally pictured, but Riley loves bringing people together. And you, she asked gently. Noah paused, then smiled softly. I like that it feels intentional, structured, planned. Talia nodded, understanding more than he said aloud. He pulled up more details from his notebook, catering packages, floral concepts, seating layouts. The venue gave us a breakdown, he explained. Once you factor in catering per plate, bar service, live music, and decor, the median cost for a reception that size climbs quickly. Talia listened carefully, then set her coffee cup down with quiet certainty. I would like to pay for it, she said. Noah blinked. For part of it. For all of it. He stared at her stunned. Riley and I discussed it yesterday, she continued. This is your beginning. I want you to start your marriage without stress, without financial strain. Let this be a celebration, not a burden. Terrence paid for Tate's ceremony, so it's only right I cover any expenses on your special day. Emotion flickered across Noah's face. Relief, gratitude, something deeper. That's incredibly generous, he said quietly. You don't have to do that. I want to, Talia replied firmly. You deserve peace, Noah. You deserve something steady, and Riley adores you. The word steady settled into him like an anchor. For the first time in a long time, the future didn't feel chaotic or uncertain. It felt organized, supported, real. They began refining details, floral budgets, entertainment options, a possible honeymoon fund instead of traditional gifts. With Talia covering the expenses, the planning shifted from careful budgeting to thoughtful selection. Riley, Talia, and Noah drank coffee. The atmosphere had shifted from polite formality to something more curious, more open. Tate's mother, Mrs. Blue, folded her hands in her lap. Riley, we've asked a lot about the engagement, she said gently, but we don't actually know much about you. Tell us about your childhood. Noah glanced at Riley, a quiet you don't have to in his eyes. Riley squeezed his hand once. It's okay. He leaned back slightly, thoughtful rather than guarded. I didn't grow up in a house like this, he began calmly. There wasn't much stability. My parents were present in name but not really in practice. I learned early how to be self-sufficient, how to entertain myself, how to read a room. Mrs. Blue's expression softened. I was the kid who performed at family gatherings, Riley continued with a faint smile. Not because anyone asked me to, but because it felt safer to be the one making people laugh than the one waiting to be noticed. Noah watched him closely. There was pride there and protectiveness. I found theater in middle school, Riley said. It was the first place I felt like I could be fully myself. On stage, I wasn't the quiet kid or the over-observant one. I was alive. I could step into different lives and somehow understand my own better. You pursued it, she asked. Yes, Riley nodded. Scholarships, community productions, eventually conservatory training. It wasn't easy. I worked 2 jobs through school, but I loved it too much to quit. Noah smiled softly. He'd heard parts of this story before, but never all of it laid out like this. I moved into professional entertainment in my early 20s, Riley continued. Stage first, then voice work, some on-camera roles, touring for a while, hosting events. It's not always glamorous, he added with a small laugh. There's rejection, long nights, constant reinvention, but I built something from nothing, and I'm proud of that. Mrs. Blue nodded thoughtfully. That takes courage. It takes stubbornness, Riley replied lightly, and a willingness to hear no without letting it define you. He glanced at Noah. And it takes having someone who believes in you. Noah's fingers tightened around his. She studied him for a moment. Entertainment is unstable, Talia said, not unkindly. How do you manage that with marriage ahead? Riley didn't bristle. He appreciated directness. I built my career intentionally, he said. I diversified production work, coaching, creative partnerships. I don't rely on one stream. Stability matters to me, especially now. I'm not reckless with Noah's future. Noah's mother tilted her head slightly. And what do you love most about what you do? Riley didn't hesitate. Connection, he said, standing in a room or on a stage and feeling people respond, making them feel something real. Laughter, reflection, hope. I think I became an entertainer because I wanted to understand people and to be understood. When I'm not an actor, my full-time, everyday job is being an entertainment PR executive. I've started my own private firm and I love it. The room quieted. Noah looked at him differently then, not just with love but with recognition. That's what you do with me, Noah said softly. You make me feel understood. Riley's smile was small but genuine. That's the only audience that really matters. Mrs. Blue dabbed at the corner of her eye discreetly. You've built a life for yourself, she said, from very little. Yes, ma'am, Riley replied gently, and I want to build the rest of it with Noah, not to replace anything from the past, but to create something healthier, more intentional. She gave a slow nod. You speak with conviction. I mean what I say, Riley answered simply. Noah shifted closer, their shoulders touching. And you're happy, Mrs. Blue asked her son. Noah didn't look away from Riley when he answered. I'm thriving. That seemed to settle something in the room. The conversation drifted to lighter topics after that: tour stories, embarrassing audition mishaps, childhood photos pulled from albums. Riley laughed easily, unafraid to poke fun at himself. Talia responded warmly, the tension fully dissolved now. She squinted at him immediately. "Why do you look like you swallowed a secret?" Noah tried not to smile. "I didn't swallow it," he said. "I'm about to tell you." Talia's eyes narrowed with interest. "Okay, I'm listening." He ran a hand through his hair, packing once before stopping in front of her. "We're looking at houses." Her eyebrows shot up. "We as in you and Riley?" "Yes." Talia slowly set her mug down. "Okay, that's not casual. What kind of houses?" Noah exhaled and the smile finally broke through. "There's this Victorian, big wraparound porch, original staircase, huge backyard located near downtown." "Stop," she held up a hand dramatically. "You, in a Victorian." He laughed. "I know, I didn't see it either, but it's nice, really nice, quiet neighborhood, tree-lined street." And she pressed. "And there are schools nearby," he added, softer. "Good ones. Elementary and middle school are within walking distance." Talia blinked at him. "Schools?" He nodded. "For kids?" she asked carefully. "For kids," Noah confirmed. Silence stretched for a beat before she slid off the counter. "I'm not rushing," he said quickly. "We're just looking. It's not a signed contract. It's not tomorrow. It's just, I don't know." It felt different. "How?" she asked, gentler now. He hesitated, then answered honestly. It didn't feel like pressure, it felt like a possibility. Talia studied him. He leaned back against the counter, crossing his arms loosely. "I walked into that house and I could see it," he admitted. "I could see Riley in the kitchen pretending he knows how to cook. I could see a dog tearing through that yard. I could see noise, life." His voice softened. "I could see myself staying." Talia's expression shifted from teasing to something warmer. "That's new," she said quietly. "Yeah," Noah replied. "It is." "Are you scared?" she asked. "A little," he admitted, "but not in a bad way. It's not fear of losing myself, it's the fear of wanting something permanent." She stepped closer. "And Riley?" she asked. "Where is he in all this?" Noah smiled without meaning to. "He didn't push, he just let me look, let me imagine." He said it doesn't have to mean everything at once. Talia nodded slowly. "That sounds like him." "I wasn't ready before," Noah continued. "I needed to make sure I wasn't choosing him because I was afraid to be alone or because it felt intense. I needed to know it was grounded." "And now?" she asked. He didn't hesitate this time. "Now it feels grounded." Talia crossed her arms thoughtfully. "So, this Victorian with the big yard and good schools." "It's just a house," he interrupted gently. She smirked. "Sure." He laughed. "It is," he insisted. "It's just a house that could hold a future." Talia's teasing faded completely. "You love him," she said. Noah didn't look away. "Yeah," he answered, "I do." "And you want the kind of love that builds something," she said, more statement than question. He nodded. "A big yard," she added lightly. "A big yard," he agreed. "And schools nearby." "For kids," he echoed. She bumped his shoulder. "Okay," she said with a soft smile, "just promise me one thing." "What?" "If you buy a Victorian, you commit to the porch aesthetic, rocking chairs, plants, fall decorations, the whole thing." Noah laughed fully now. "Deal." It wasn't just a house. It was the first time imagining a life that didn't feel temporary. And that realization didn't scare him the way he expected it to. It steadied him. "Is Tate invited?" Mrs. Blue asked casually from the head of the table. The question sliced clean through the easy morning atmosphere. Noah kept his expression steady. "Yes," he answered, "he is." Talia's brows lifted slightly, but she stayed quiet. "It's an olive branch," Noah added carefully. "To settle our current issues. Tate apologized recently for hurting me and I accepted his plea. We're not best friends anymore, but I'd like to hope that someday we might be friends again." Talia nodded approvingly. "That's very mature of you. I'm glad you two can get along now." Get along? If only it were that simple. Noah forced a polite smile and reached for his coffee, willing his pulse to slow. Noah didn't want to see Tate again. Avoiding him was the safest option, the only option really. For the next few weeks, Noah planned to stay far away from his former buddy until whatever poison was burning through Tate's veins finally burned itself out. Tate had always been chaos wrapped in charm, the kind of man who could walk into a room and turn everyone's emotions upside down without even trying. But lately the chaos had sharpened into something darker, something desperate. Noah could feel it every time Tate called, every time his name lit up across his mobile phone screen late at night like a warning signal. Tate was a storm, and Noah knew storms destroyed everything that stood still long enough. So Noah kept moving. He buried himself in plans with Riley, forcing his attention toward the future instead of the past. Wedding venues, guest lists, discussions about where they would live after the ceremony. Riley talked excitedly about colors and flowers and expensive hotels near the coast, while Noah nodded along, pretending his chest did not tighten every time Tate's name drifted through his mind uninvited. Because despite everything, Noah knew Tate better than anyone. And that was exactly what frightened him. Tate would not simply disappear quietly into the background. He was not the kind of man who accepted rejection with dignity or distance. Tate confronted things, he cornered them, he pushed until people snapped or surrendered. Noah could already imagine him appearing outside his home late at night, leaning against his car beneath the streetlights with that unreadable hazel stare towards Noah's pale blue eyes. Noah imagined opening his front door only to find Tate standing there, soaked from the rain, demanding answers Noah no longer wanted to give. The thought alone unsettled him. Because Noah wasn't afraid Tate would scream. He was afraid Tate would make him listen. And listening to Tate had always been Noah's weakness. For years, Noah had allowed himself to orbit Tate's gravity even when every instinct told him to run. Tate had a way of speaking that crawled beneath Noah's skin and stayed there for days afterward. A single conversation with him could unravel weeks of determination. Noah hated that about himself, hated how quickly Tate could drag buried emotions back to the surface with one look or one carefully timed touch on the shoulder. That was why Noah could not allow a confrontation to happen. Not now. Not when his future with Riley was finally becoming real. Noah repeated this to himself constantly as he moved through his days inside his home, in the kitchen while making coffee, in the shower before work, at night while staring at the ceiling unable to sleep. Leave Tate behind, leave Tate behind, leave Tate behind. Yet every repetition sounded less convincing than the one before it. Part of Noah feared Tate would eventually corner him somewhere unavoidable. Outside work, at the grocery store, in the parking lot near Noah's home. Tate had always possessed an almost frightening ability to appear exactly where Noah least expected him. The possibility lingered in Noah's mind like a shadow trailing behind every ordinary moment. And if Tate confronted him face to face, Noah wasn't entirely certain his resolve would survive it. That truth disturbed him most of all. Because Noah wanted to believe he had already escaped Tate emotionally. He wanted to believe Riley represented a clean beginning, proof that he had matured beyond the confusing attachment that had consumed so much of his youth. But deep down, Noah understood something painful. People only ran that hard from things that still had power over them. And Tate still had power over him. Even now. Especially now. Late one evening, Noah locked the front door of his home and checked the windows twice before turning off the lights. The behavior felt ridiculous, paranoid even, yet he couldn't shake the sensation that Tate was drawing closer somehow, like thunder rumbling miles away before the rain finally arrives. Noah stood in the darkness of the living room, staring through the curtains at the empty street outside. For a brief second, he imagined seeing Tate's silhouette beneath the street lamp across the road. Watching. Waiting. Noah quickly stepped back from the window, his pulse hammering in his chest. This was exactly why he needed distance. Because if Tate cornered him, if Tate forced the confrontation Noah had been avoiding for years, then every carefully constructed wall inside him might finally collapse. And Noah wasn't sure he could survive hearing the things Tate would say once there was nobody left around to stop him. Tate was Noah's only weakness. That was the humiliating truth Noah kept trying and failing to escape. Mark had warned him for years. "Leave Tate alone," Mark would say whenever Noah spiraled after another late-night phone call or another emotionally confusing weekend spent at Tate's mansion in Los Angeles. "You keep acting like he's eventually going to become the person you want him to be." But Noah never listened. Because leaving Tate alone felt impossible. There was something addictive about him. Not just physically attractive, though Tate could have had almost anyone he wanted without effort. It was deeper than that. Tate carried something magnetic inside him, something impossible to fully explain. The X factor, the kind movie stars had, the kind powerful men built entire empires around. People gravitated toward Tate instinctively. Rooms changed when he entered them. Conversations bent toward him naturally. Tate could seduce almost anyone. Men, women, strangers, friends, people twice his age or people smart enough to know better. And the terrifying part was that Tate rarely even seemed aware of the effect he had on people. His charisma felt effortless, woven into him so naturally that he moved through life collecting admiration without needing to ask for it. Only when he was older did Noah realize just how much of Joey Tate seemed to carry inside him. Tate had the same charisma, the same magnetic personality, the same effortless ability to draw people toward him. His uncle Joey had been a playboy, a charismatic lover, and despite his flaws, a genuinely kind man. Tate seemed to have inherited some of Joey's most immature and hedonistic qualities along with that charm. Sometimes, if Noah didn't know any better, he would have thought Tate was Joey's son rather than Terrence's. There were moments when the resemblance wasn't in Tate's face at all. It was in the way he moved through the world, as though the rules that governed everyone else had been written for someone else. Tate attracted everyone. Noah had watched it happen for decades. Dinner waitresses blush around him. Investors are laughing too hard at his jokes. Beautiful people find excuses to touch him at parties. Everyone wanted something from Tate. A glance. A conversation. A night. And somehow, despite all of that, Tate had spent years sleeping beside Noah platonically like it was the most natural arrangement in the world. One bed. One bedroom. One couch during storms. One lifetime of blurred boundaries, neither of them fully acknowledged aloud. Tate left everything undefined on purpose. That was what Noah finally understood. He wanted Noah emotionally tethered to him without ever forcing a definition. Friends. Best friends. Brothers. Soulmates. Occasional emotional substitutes for real relationships. The title changed depending on what benefited Tate most at the time. But the expectation beneath it never changed. Don't leave me. Noah rubbed tiredly at his face while staring out the small living room window. Rain blanketed the trees outside in silver mist, and light settled heavily through the mountains that surrounded him. Noah exhaled slowly. What exactly had he gained from all those years orbiting Tate's life anyway? Access to parties filled with celebrities. Private jets. Expensive whiskey beside infinity pools overlooking Los Angeles. Being known as Tate Blue's buddy. None of it had actually belonged to Noah. He had simply existed near the gravity of somebody more important. Meanwhile, Tate took everything. Noah's loyalty. Noah's time. Noah's emotional dependence. And when Tate married Chloe, he proved exactly how disposable Noah truly was. The memory still made Noah feel sick. One moment, Noah had been central to Tate's life. Next, he was abandoned with a letter and silence while Tate disappeared into a glamorous marriage that dominated magazines and social media for months. A whole year without answers. A whole year wondering if their entire relationship had only mattered to Noah. Now suddenly, Tate wanted him again. Why? Because the marriage failed. Because Tate was lonely. Because after conquering half of Los Angeles emotionally and sexually, Noah had become the one thing still left unresolved. The thought hollowed Noah out. Maybe Noah was simply convenient now, familiar, safe, the final emotional loose end Tate couldn't stand leaving untied. And even if Tate truly believed his feelings were real in this moment, Noah knew Tate too well to trust permanence. Tate lived through intensity. Obsession. Impulse. But eventually, the intensity always cooled. Eventually, Tate regained control of himself and moved on to the next distraction, the next beautiful person, the next impossible emotional game. Noah could not survive being temporary to him again. That was why hiding felt necessary. Not childish. Necessary. Because Noah understood one dangerous truth better than anyone else. If Tate found him, Noah would probably surrender. One conversation. One vulnerable apology. One look from those pale hazel eyes. That was all it would take. So Noah stayed hidden, ignoring calls and avoiding cities where Tate might search. He avoided Tate and kept to the shadows. Tate always gets over things eventually. He just had to survive long enough for Tate to get over him, too. Tate wouldn't let Noah go. That was the problem. Noah had too much history with him to pretend otherwise. For years, Tate had proven over and over again that once something mattered to him emotionally, he pursued it relentlessly. He could ignore people easily when they meant nothing to him. Former lovers disappeared from Tate's life every year without consequence. Old friends faded into the background, entire relationships dissolved beneath Tate's indifference. But Noah had never belonged in that category. Never. Tate always came back for him. Even after screaming matches. Even after betrayal. Even after 12 months of silence. Some invisible cord always pulled Tate toward him again, eventually, and Noah hated himself for still feeling the same pull in return. That was why hiding no longer felt temporary. It felt necessary for survival. Because if Tate refused to accept no for an answer this time, Noah honestly didn't know how he could avoid him forever. Tate had resources, money, connections across Los Angeles. People are willing to tell him anything if he asks the right way. Eventually, Tate would find him. The certainty settled heavily inside Noah's chest while he sat silently at the long dining table inside Tate's childhood house. Across from him, Riley and Talia talked casually over brunch while soft jazz drifted through the expensive kitchen speakers. Sunlight poured through massive windows overlooking the gardens beyond the estate, making everything appear deceptively peaceful. Normal. Noah pushed food around his plate without appetite. Tate wasn't there. That should have made Noah feel safer. Instead, the absence somehow made the entire house feel more tense, as though Tate still lingered invisibly inside every room. Noah could see him everywhere without trying, leaning against the doorway as a teenager, smirking during arguments, falling asleep beside Noah during summer storms upstairs, watching him too closely across dinner tables exactly like this one. Talia lifted her coffee cup gracefully. Tate hasn't been by in weeks, she said quietly, not since he became the official Blues CEO. Noah's stomach tightened instantly. Riley glanced up from his plate. He's probably busy. Talia hesitated before nodding, though her expression suggested she didn't fully believe it herself. The silence afterward stretched painfully. Noah lowered his eyes immediately, pretending interest in his untouched brunch while tension crawled beneath his skin. Especially when memories from the last time he saw Tate returned all over again. Especially the look in Tate's eyes before Noah left. Noah swallowed hard. He had never seen that expression directed at him before. Not from Tate. Tate had always been physically affectionate in confusing ways throughout their relationship. Casual touches, long stares, sleeping beside Noah platonically like closeness itself soothed something restless inside him, but recently things had changed, sharper somehow, like years of restraint had finally fractured beneath the surface. Tate looked at Noah with unmistakable hunger. Not friendship. Not emotional dependence. Something far more dangerous. The memory alone made Noah's pulse quicken beneath the table. Tate couldn't stop touching him last night, fingers brushing Noah's wrist during conversations. His hand settled possessively against Noah's back while moving through the hallway. The way he held onto Noah before Noah finally left, like letting go physically, hurt him somehow. And Noah hated how aware of every touch he became. Because part of him responded instinctively to Tate, no matter how desperately he fought it. That was the secret Noah never admitted aloud. Tate Blue could unravel him with almost no effort at all. And Tate knew it now. That realization terrified Noah more than anything. Because once Tate desired something intensely, he chased it obsessively until the feeling burned itself out. Noah had watched it happen with business deals, relationships, and impossible ambitions. Tate consumed things completely when he wanted them badly enough. What if Noah had become that fixation now? What if Tate's sudden desperation wasn't temporary? Riley reached for Noah's hand beneath the table, gently grounding him back in the room. "You okay?" Riley asked quietly. Noah forced himself to nod. "I'm fine." But the lie felt weak even to him. Because somewhere out there, Tate was awake, restless, searching, driven by emotions. Noah no longer trusted himself to survive. And if Tate found him alone again, Noah feared one pleading look from those pale blue eyes might destroy every defense he still had left. Then he heard it. The front door opened. Footsteps echoed through the marble entryway downstairs, slow and familiar, followed by the sound of keys being tossed carelessly onto the hallway table. And then the voice. Unmistakable. "Where is everyone?" "Tate." The sound of it hit Noah like a shockwave straight through his chest. His entire body reacted before his thoughts could catch up. His pulse accelerated so violently that it made him dizzy, air caught painfully in his throat, heat rushed instantly into his face while panic surged through him so fast it felt electrical. "No. No, no, no. Not here. Not now." Noah gripped the edge of the dining chair hard enough to hurt his fingers. "Think. Find an exit. Move." His eyes scanned the room desperately. The hallway was exposed. The patio doors would force him directly past the windows. The kitchen entrance was impossible now. Tate was already inside the house. Panic tightened viciously around his lungs. Noah pushed back from the table too quickly, the chair legs scraping sharply against the floor. Riley looked up instantly. "Noah." But Noah barely heard him. His heartbeat thundered so violently in his ears that it drowned everything else out. Tate was here. Tate was actually here. And suddenly Noah couldn't breathe. Every rational thought abandoned him at once. All he could think about was escaping before Tate saw him, before those hazel eyes locked onto him and stripped away every defense Noah had spent weeks trying to rebuild. Because whenever Tate was near, Noah stopped thinking clearly. Noah needed to leave Tate's mother's house immediately. The last time he had seen Tate had been in his bed and they had crossed lines the two of them could never uncross. Now Noah couldn't stop wondering what Tate would be thinking if he saw him sitting at the table. He would remember. He would remember what Noah had looked like that night, and knowing Tate, he would probably wear that infuriating little smirk and turn everything into an innuendo. Tate wouldn't even have to say anything explicit. A raised eyebrow, a knowing smile, one carefully chosen comment, and Noah would know exactly what he meant. And the worst part was that nobody else at the table would understand. They would laugh or carry on with the conversation while Noah sat there, silently wishing the floor would open beneath him. He had to get out of that house before Tate walked into the room. His body betrayed him. His emotions betrayed him. Everything became irrational. Noah stumbled backward from the table, chest constricting painfully while he searched frantically for somewhere, anywhere to go, but there was nowhere left, no doors close enough, no room to disappear into before Tate reached the dining area. And then Noah realized there was only one option left. Humiliation burned through him. But panic won. Without dignity, without thought, Noah dropped suddenly beneath the breakfast table, diving under it so quickly the tablecloth shifted violently around him. Talia gasped softly in complete shock. Riley stared at him wide-eyed. "What are you doing?" Noah curled inward beneath the table instinctively, breathing unevenly and rapidly while trying desperately to quiet himself. His shoulder hit one of the chair legs hard enough to sting, but adrenaline drowned out most of the pain. Footsteps moved somewhere down the hallway. "Closer." Noah squeezed his eyes shut briefly, fighting the rising panic attack threatening to completely consume him. His chest felt too tight, his lungs refusing to cooperate no matter how hard he tried to breathe normally. This was insane. Humiliating. Pathetic. But terror overrode pride completely. Because Noah knew one horrifying truth better than anyone. If Tate saw him right now, if Tate cornered him alone while Noah was already unraveling emotionally, Noah wasn't sure he would have the strength to leave again. The tablecloth brushed against his shoulders as Noah crouched beneath the dining table, both palms flattened against the cool hardwood floor beneath him. What am I doing? The thought flashed through his mind in horror. But it didn't matter. His body had already chosen instinct over dignity. Panic over pride. Across the table, Riley sat frozen in stunned disbelief, clearly disturbed by Noah's complete lack of decorum and bizarre behavior, yet somehow remaining silent through all of it. Noah could practically feel Riley staring at the moving shape hidden beneath the expensive white tablecloth. Humiliation burned through Noah's chest, but not enough to crawl back out. The footsteps echoed closer down the hallway. Slow, steady, unavoidable. "I'm not here," Noah implored shakily under his breath, heart pounding so violently he was certain everyone in the house could hear it. "I was never here." His breathing came unevenly now, each inhale catching painfully in his throat. Beneath the table the air felt suffocatingly warm, the scent of polished wood and linen surrounding him while adrenaline shook through his limbs uncontrollably. Above him chairs shifted. A heavy, stunned silence settled across the dining room. Then Talia Blue cleared her throat softly, genuine concern and confusion threading through her voice. "What's going on?" she asked carefully, glancing between Riley and the trembling figure hidden beneath the table. Noah squeezed his eyes shut. "Please don't. Please." But then Talia turned her head toward the hallway. In the dining room, she called evenly to Tate. Noah felt actual terror seize his body. There was no escape now. None. The footsteps immediately changed direction. Closer. Every slow step against the hardwood floors struck Noah like a countdown toward disaster. His muscles locked tight beneath the tablecloth while his pulse spiraled completely out of control, and somehow the humiliation made everything worse. Because Talia and Riley were staring at each other now in visible shock, both clearly trying to process why Noah, the quiet, composed man they had known for years, was literally hiding beneath their dining table like a terrified child. Noah wanted to disappear. Wanted the floor to open beneath him and swallow him whole before Tate entered the room and saw this. Saw him. But deep down, Noah already knew the horrifying truth. The second Tate walked through that doorway, Noah's body would react before his mind ever could. Noah had never done anything remotely like this before. He was always composed, polite, measured, sweet, the kind of man who handled discomfort with quiet restraint, not someone who dove beneath a breakfast table like a startled child hiding from a nightmare. Which was exactly why the entire room felt so deeply wrong. Talia's eyes flicked downward again toward the faint outline of Noah's shoes visible beneath the long white tablecloth. Talia cleared her throat awkwardly, attempting to restore some sense of order to a morning that had abruptly derailed into complete absurdity. Then Tate appeared in the doorway. He looked composed at first glance, casual even, dark jacket hanging open slightly, hair still imperfectly styled like he had run restless hands through it all morning, but there was a sharpness in his hazel eyes that refused to soften. Tate took in the room immediately. 3 plates. 1 chair pushed back too suddenly. A coffee cup still steaming beside an untouched breakfast. Something felt off instantly. And Tate noticed everything. He hadn't planned on coming over that morning. Not originally. The truth was he had experienced the best night of his entire life only hours earlier, falling asleep deeply and peacefully beside Noah after years of aching confusion neither of them fully acknowledged aloud. For the first time in months, Tate had felt calm, whole somehow. Like holding Noah close in the darkness quieted something violent inside him, he hadn't even realized that he was screaming. Then he woke up alone. And found the note taped carefully to Noah's fridge. Tate hadn't slept afterward. Not really. The words replayed in his head relentlessly all night long, sharp, deliberate, final. He had unfolded the paper so many times that the creases split along the center fold. Cruel. Clean. No explanation. Just abandonment was handed back to him with perfect precision. And Tate hated how much it hurt. That was why he'd come looking for the cunt before his anger completely consumed him. He pulled into his parents' driveway just after 8 that morning, chest tight with emotions he refused to fully name. Rage, panic, desperation, possessiveness. The front door had been unlocked. Voices drifted from the kitchen. His mother laughed softly. And another voice. Male. Tate stepped inside immediately, shrugging off his jacket while calling out casually, "Mom," then he rounded the corner into the breakfast nook. And stopped cold. There was a blond man sitting at the table. For one fractured second, Tate's heart reacted instinctively before logic could intervene. Hope punched violently through his chest so hard it almost hurt. No way. But then reality corrected itself almost immediately. Wrong blonde. Wrong posture. Wrong energy entirely. This man sat too comfortably, too composed, holding a coffee mug as if he belonged inside the Blue family home. Riley. The realization irritated Tate instantly. Especially because this was the man arrogant enough to think he could actually marry Noah. Tate's jaw tightened subtly. Of course Noah's pathetic fiancée would be here. Meanwhile, Noah himself was nowhere in sight. The disappointment hit Tate harder than expected, darkening his expression almost immediately before he masked it again. But something still felt wrong. Tate's eyes narrowed slightly as silence settled strangely across the room. His mother looked tense. Riley is visibly nervous. Tate's pulse spiked instantly. His heart slammed violently against his ribs while heat rushed hard through his body, the sudden adrenaline making blood pool low in his stomach in seconds. Something was wrong. The tension in the room felt unnatural immediately. The stranger looked up first. Calm. Steady. Polite. Hi, the man said smoothly, as though this situation were somehow normal. Tate didn't return the greeting. His eyes remained fixed on the blonde stranger sitting comfortably at his family's breakfast table. Talia brightened nervously, clearly trying to smooth over the bizarre atmosphere already thickening the room. "Oh, Tate, sweetheart," she said quickly, "you're early, weren't you coming for dinner tonight?" Tate barely looked at her. "Who is that?" he asked flatly. The stranger's expression didn't falter, though something colder sharpened subtly behind his eyes. Talia hesitated briefly before answering. "This is Riley." The name hit Tate like shattered glass. Riley. Noah's fiancé. His worst nightmare was sitting casually at his parents' table, drinking coffee as he belonged there. Tate's jaw tightened immediately. "And why?" Tate asked slowly, voice dangerously controlled. "Is Riley sitting at our breakfast table?" Talia glanced nervously between them now, finally sensing tension she clearly did not understand. "Well, dear, I can introduce myself," Riley interrupted gently. Tate's eyes snapped toward him instantly. Riley stood slowly, not intimidated, not aggressive, just composed, respectful. Confident. Tate already hated him for it. "I'm engaged to Noah," Riley said calmly. Under the table, Noah stopped breathing altogether. It wasn't loud. Noah imagined that now that Tate had finally met Riley in person, he could see Tate's anger and jealousy taking center stage. He had seen it years ago when Tate had nearly choked Mark one night.